But then fast forward 20, 30 years from now, then you get in a situation and the universe says, you remember that thing that you was traumatized about? You remember all the tools and skills you pick up? Now they're available for this situation right now because you can meet an obstacle that required an experience that you was like, I didn't want it when it happens to me. But now it gave me some tools that get me to get through this door. Like I couldn't pick this lock if I didn't got the key when I back then in that experience. So then I always look at life the same way. Like something happened to you right now that you like, oh, it's horrible. I don't like it. It traumatizes me. But I get to age 40, and I'm at this door, and the only way to get through it is the key that I got when I was traumatized. Then what do you think about your trauma? It's no treasure. So then I look at my life and I'm like, okay, whatever happens to me, I didn't volunteer for it. I felt like it was traumatized. I didn't understand it. But now I get to a certain point, I realize that in the end, all these things connects. These dots connect over a period of time. You just done a long enough timeline, it makes sense. So now I'm like, everything is treasure. I just got to figure out, I ask my brain now, hey, how do you see the treasure going forward? And now my brain starts looking for it. Like I said, your eyes want to see and your ears want to hear what your brain is looking for. Now my brain is looking for it. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Hey guys, I'm back for another episode of Manders Mindset. As always, I'm your host, Amanda Russo, aka the Breathing Goddess, and I am here today with Wright. He's a retired Army veteran of 22 years, now a life coach and author, and just an all-around really wise man who is dedicated to helping people realize their traumas are really their treasures. And I'm here with Asher today.
Wow, thank you for that introduction, Amanda. And just to make something clear, I retired in 2022, and I did 22 years in the United States Army. And for the guests that are listening here, you're here because Amanda is an awesome person, and she's been entertaining you guys for the longest with her wisdom and the stories that she brought on the podcast. And I'm here to share my story as well, and to really kind of bring some wisdom to the folks that are listening. So let's chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So did I miss anything with my introduction?
I've done so much over my life, so I would focus on just two identities: being a veteran, being an immigrant, and we can talk about the story around that and how I started my journey. Because I was born and raised in Jamaica, so I'm hailing from Jamaica. That's my home birth, my homeland, and came to the United States back in 1998, and then joined the military. 4 months after I got to the United States, I got my green card, and I was like, I'm going to join the military. And I did that, and it's been an awesome journey. So, been in the United States 25 years, my friend, and 22 of those 25 years, I've been in the military, and I've learned a lot. And I'm pursuing the passion of helping immigrants and veterans. Because while I was in the military, it was a big question I was asking myself: who do you want to be a hero to, Asher? And that question was the American population, United States citizen, guys. Folks like you, Amanda, you guys were worth my sacrifice. You guys were worth it. So I wanted to be a hero to you guys. And then once I retired, the same question been poking at me. Who do you want to be a hero to now, Asher? And that question came back to my veterans and my immigrants. Because I kind of fall on those two identities. So I'm serving them right now with my work.
Okay, that's awesome. I love that question. Who do you want to be a hero to?
Yeah. Who you want to be a hero to? Amanda, same question. But oftentimes I don't want nobody to be my hero. I want to be my own hero. But it helps you to think about the question at depth, because it's going to come back to an identity and a group. So I want to be a hero to this group of people, the immigrants group of people and the veterans group of people. So people out there in the world, same thing. You ask yourself the same question: who do you want to be a hero to? And you got to figure out, it could be a family, like your group of, your family. You could want to be a hero to them, support them, serve them, find a solution for them, help them with their stuff. And the same thing for me. The people that was a big part of my community, my family, was the immigrant community and the veterans community. They helped support me on this journey when I got to the United States. So now I want to give back the same thing that they gave to me, which is support them as well. So I want to be a hero to them. And that's how I look at it.
Wow, that's a very powerful way to look at it. Definitely makes you think more like who you want to impact in life.
Yes. And that's why you're in the business you're in right now. The breathing goddess, right? You definitely want to impact a group of people and bring solution to them because in the end, right? I mean, you just like if you can plan a lot of food and you can eat it, right? You can eat that food, but then it doesn't taste well when you don't get to share it. Just like anything else in life, right? When you're sharing it, that's when it has a lot more value and meaning because you're sharing with other people. So all the wisdom and stuff I've gained over the years, and it's great for me because it helped me reshape my mindset, repurpose my mindset. But now I gotta share that with other people. And who you find to share with people that are gonna value it. And I gotta find those people that's gonna value it. And oftentimes the best connection point for people to value what you do is people that serve that similar identity. Because we can connect that way. Just like when you have a conversation with a lot of women, you guys can talk because you guys have the same identity.
That's true.
So you got to find that identity that you can serve, and it makes life more meaningful.
Wow. I love that. I really love that. So, first question I usually start my podcast with is, so that's what you do. Who are you at the core?
Wow. Here's a question gonna have your audience tripping over their stuff right now, right? And the answer is that you will never know who you are. You're gonna ask her, what are you talking about? So when you ask me who am I, that question you would never answer that question because that question always comes back to who you are at your core. You are a spiritual being at your core, and you can never define what's spiritual. Like you could never define so. I'm gonna use the word God in an example, right? You could never define who God is. God is undefinable, right? Just like you could never define who you are because you're undefinable. You just like God. You're an expression of God, right? So the spirit is your core, and you can't define what the spirit is. So what cannot be undefined can be anything. That's why you can be anything in life, because if you really go at the core, that's why you are. You're somebody that's anything and everything. So you can't define that, but you can define the things you create. And what I call the things that we create, that we define, is what we have. Not who you are, but what you have. You can define what you have. You can define your intelligence. You can define your you can define your body, because you got the body itself. Like, it was once a baby. Like Bob Marley says, the biggest man you ever meet was once a baby in his life, right? And you grow based on the food you eat. So if the food you eat grow you into the person you are today, then you can say you're not your body either, right? Because at one point it was a little thing, it was in your mother's womb. And when you started in your mother's womb, she ate food to grow you. So then you can always go trace back all of that lineage a little bit. You're like, okay, so I'm not my body. Then you know you're not your mind, because the education you have is something that you actually acquired over time, right? So you're not your mind either. Then who are you really? Then it comes back to that deep question, like, okay, so now who am I really? Very hard question to answer, because you can't define that thing. But the manifestation of who you are, you can define. The manifestation of who you are is the things that you have, the things you accumulate. You can define those. Like for my ego is my greatest definition. I'm an author. I was a soldier. That was used to be my ego, right? It was for my work. I'm a life coach. I'm a wisdom coach, right? All these things. Those are the things I create. I define those things. So when somebody asks me who I am, they're trying to ask me, what am I made of? Like, I'm made of those things. So I want to present to you, I'm an author. Okay, that works for you because you can kind of wrap your mind around the author piece, because that makes sense. But who I am really at the core could never be defined. If that makes any sense to you.
Why? Why can't it ever be defined?
Because you define it today and tomorrow it's something else.
But that doesn't mean that it's true with who you are today.
So if you ask me who I am today, then the question becomes more specific. But overall, who I am, it's very hard to pin that down. Because let's say 40-something years ago, I was a little baby. I might still that guy. You know what I'm saying? So if you can trace it back, so who I am really it's a combination of a lot of things. So therefore, the real Asher is undefined. You can't define the real Asher. But the manifestation of Asher in different areas, different timeline, then that can be defined. But I know that's not really me, because today I'm something, tomorrow I'm something else, tomorrow I'm something else, tomorrow I'm something else. So then the manifestation of those things keep changing. So then that question about who am I really, it eludes a lot of people because it's very hard to define. But if you come from that deeper space, like, hey, Asher, at the core, you're your spirit. I'm a spirit having a human experience. So the physical me is a manifestation of my spiritual self. So now we can define the physical self. So you can, Asher, you're a black man. Okay, that's part. my manifestation of Asher, but that's not completely who I am. Because I'm above all of those organizations, right? So I'm above the organization of color, the organization of sex, the organization of everything you can define right now. I'm above that organization because I created it. If that make any sense to you. I might just lose you just now.
So, okay. How did you create it? You said you created it all. How?
Okay. How do I create Asher? I'm gonna give you an example, right? At one point, I didn't think I was smart or wise. I believe in myself I was stupid because I suffer from some of the symptoms of AD and dyslexia. A lot of people might see themselves the same way. And I didn't thought I was wise, but I was like, I'm gonna be a man of Olympian wisdom. That was one of the words I used to myself. So if wisdom wasn't in the Olympics, I'm gonna race. I'm gonna try to win it. I'm gonna try to get that trophy one day of be a man of Olympian wisdom. So I keep telling myself, Asher, you're one of the wisest men on the planet. So I started creating that person in my mind, and by assuming that role or that identity, I started chasing on wisdom. I started valuing wisdom the most. Like wisdom is my highest value, and I started looking for things to make me wiser. And more I started doing. I started telling myself that, and I started talking to people, and they started, well, actually, you sound like a very wise person. I'm like, whoa, it started manifest itself now. Now, the thing that I imagine and I believe about myself, I manifest it. Now I start naming it, and other people start naming it as well. So now that becomes a physical manifestation of Asher in that space. Oh, Asher is a person of wisdom. Oh, he's wise. But at one point, I wasn't. So now you say, Asher, who are you? I'm a wisdom guy. But one time I was an idiot. So which one do I claim? So I keep changing over time. So that's how I look at myself. So because I think myself as a spiritual based person, that means everything that manifests in the physical is just a manifestation for right now, but it keeps changing. So therefore, who I am really, nobody can really tell me. Nobody can tell me who I am. You cannot define me because the thing is, when you define something, you put yourself above it. And the reason why people trying to define you because they want to be above you. So they say, "Oh, you an idiot, Amanda," because they want to define you in a certain way. But they can never define you because today they say something about you, tomorrow is something different. You just keep evolving. So therefore, they can't really define it. So whenever time people say, "Oh, I know you," you don't. You don't. You know what's manifested today, but tomorrow is something else. So you don't really know me. You just knew about me. I like the facial expression you're making. But I love this conversation. I love the conversation because I like to have deep conversation about certain things. And just kind of dig deeper beneath the surface of certain way of people looking at things. Because in this space I call this the thought universe, I always trying to like look at the thoughts that people are having. Like, how are you thinking about the thing you're thinking about right now? And how do you come about thinking about the thing you're thinking about right now? And oftentimes when people think about stuff, I'm like, hey, you need to think about your thinking and question the thing you think about. And then go deeper and deeper. Like, there's a reason why I think about this stuff this way. Well, let me keep digging deeper. Yeah.
What would you say the thought universe means to you? How would you define that?
I love your questions. You are a good interviewer, man. You just keep stretching me. Okay. So the thought universe is a place where thought lives. And we don't know where that place, because we know what we know for certain is that the thought doesn't exist. Yeah, like you're not the container of thoughts, by the way. Because I'm gonna tell you why you're not the container of thoughts. If you die right now, right? Say, for example, you pass away, or maybe not. You don't want to put that in you, just in case you like. So Amanda doesn't exist anymore, right? The body that I'm looking at right now is no longer animated, right? That means life lived it. Where did the life go? We can talk about it after this. But if I have a machine and I plug it into your body, right? Your carcass. I plug it into your body. I would not be able to download the memory or the thoughts that was in their body when you was alive. Can't download it. So where is it at? It's somewhere else, right? So we know the body is not the container for thoughts. It's just a transmitter. So now, if the thought universe exists where thought just exists, right, and we just stream into it, connect to it, and we just connect to certain thoughts and have them, then yeah, that's a place it exists. So in that universe, I go there and I download ideas into my local universe, and I get to express them in a certain way, get to play with them, get to connect with them. And that's how I see the thought universe playing out. So I got my local universe, you got your local universe, then we got the wider universe where the thought lives, the thought universe, and everybody connect there. And we all connect there and get our information from there. We download from that thought universe. And it comes within our system, but then we don't store it here. So who knows where thought exists? We don't know, but we know it's not in the body.
Okay.
You feel like your thoughts live in you?
I don't think so. Because you can't really control your thoughts, but you can control whether you choose to focus on the thought or let the thought go.
Oh my God, that's perfect. Perfectly said. You can't control them, but you can decide whether not to focus on them. And I'll tell you a story about, you ever heard about this guy named Sadhguru?
I haven't.
No, he's an Indian yogi, one of the wisest men on the planet.
I love yoga. I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, you gotta look up Sadhguru, man. That guy is wisdom. He's smart. He's smart and wise. He's good. But anyway, he was I was in Cuba at the time. Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I was stationed there when I was in the military. And it was like one of my best assignments. But I used to go on this dock every day. I'd sit on this dock and just kind of meditate and stuff and listen to different thinkers and stuff. And I remember I was studying his work at the time. And one day I heard him talk. It was like, hey, some days, he was like, first he was saying, thoughts are puny. He was like, someday I don't even think. I'm like, what? Like, bro, do you know what astral brain is like? There's always thoughts in here, right? And he was like, some days I don't even think. I'm like, that's not possible. But I was open-minded because I was reading another book at the time called Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And he was talking about his experiment with just watching his mind, watching thoughts float around, like he just observing his thoughts and stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm listening to the book at the same time. But I'm hearing Sadhguru say what he's saying. I'm like, okay, really? So I'm gonna test this out on myself. So I sit there at the dock every day at lunch and I just kind of meditate, just close my eyes and just let the thoughts float by. And I got down to 2 thoughts, Amanda. 2 thoughts. And I was like, wait a minute, Sadhguru might be onto something here. If I can get to 2 thoughts, maybe I can get to no thoughts. So one day, I was out scuba diving with me and my buddies. And we was out there just floating around in the big blue, man. And I think for like a moment, I don't even know, but I know I wasn't thinking. Because I caught myself like thinking. And I was like, oh, Sadhguru is right. Because for the last, however long it was, I know I wasn't thinking. I was just observing and floating in the ocean. And right then, I realized that my mind at the time was not thinking. Like I wasn't focused on any kind of thoughts. I was just observing the big blue. And it made me realize that that's what we are in this body. We are sitting in this body. Something is in this body observing what's happening. And right there, I realized Sadhguru was right. He was like, yeah, some days I don't think. So now, how does he control that? How does he do that like automatically? That man is powerful to be able to do that. And he has a whole lot of experience you can go listen to and find out that he experienced on the planet. But he's really good. So now after that, I became a believer. Like, yes, we can control what we focus on within our mind. Sometimes we can don't think at all. It's possible. Just like there's another yogi, Johnny, I forget his name, but it's an Indian yogi. And I think after the age of 8, he hasn't ate anything or drink any kind of substance. And he lived until he's 80. So now it kind of worked my mind, because I used to read a lot of books. I used to read books that talks about people that was saying a lot of people that they eat like once a month or twice a month or they only 3 different stuff they eat, and they eat every month or 2 months, and they live till they become centenarians, right? Living to their centuries, couple of centuries too. But a lot of those stuff wasn't documented. Right? It was just reported as stories. Like nobody really observed it, but people in the industry say they remember this thing. And I was like, might be true, might not be true. But when I discovered Prajani, whatever his name, the Indian yogi, that says he stopped eating when he was 8 years old and lived until he's like 70, 80s. And the Indian doctors, they record him, they sat him in the hospital for a couple of days, and they watch him, and this guy didn't pass in the feces, didn't eat any food or nothing, and he was living, surviving. He's a very skinny guy. But it told me that thing was possible. Those story was kind of true. So now I'm like, okay, what else we hear about history that we think is not possible, but it is. So that gave me an idea that you can live without food for years because that guy did it. And based on the story that other people reporting, those could be true as well. Even though they wasn't like recorded and monitored and stuff, but they monitored this guy for a couple of weeks and he didn't eat anything, didn't pass nothing, whatever. So anyway, so that changed my belief system around a lot of things. So when people say, oh, I can do this, I did that, I'm like, maybe in my experience, I didn't experience it, but it's possible. So now I changed my belief system, my mind around a lot of things.
Hmm.
I just
Have
went on a
you?
rant just now.
And I'll let you go. Have you ever gone without eating? Have you ever done any fasting?
Yeah, I've done some fasting. I think I've done 7 days or 10 days.
Okay.
10 days. Yeah, I've been a couple of days. I have really control of my hunger. Actually, I'm a person that I can go without eating a day or two. Something I can really like intermittent fast and stuff. So I'm not person. Sometimes I eat like one meal a day mostly. So I have really control of my hunger. Some people like they go crazy if they don't eat. Like I think better when I'm on an empty stomach. So sometimes most of the day I'm hungry because when I write, my mind works better when I'm hungry. When I'm thinking about a problem, my mind works better when I'm hungry. When I have a full stomach, it puts me in the sleep, makes me like give me that state where I can't really focus for long. When I'm hungry, I can sit and work on a problem for a long time because I have control of my hunger. So those are the things that I experience in my body. So I know what my body can do. Plus, I was in the military. I pushed my body to a lot of limits. So I know what it can do. But now it's all about the mind piece. How far I can push my mind, and that's a new frontier I'm working on right now.
Okay.
Mm.
What do you do to push your mind?
Mm. Back in 2016, I started this challenge, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of history on it. So I told you that most of my life I suffer from the symptoms of ADD and dyslexia. So deep down, I didn't thought I was a person that reads. And going to my dad, my mom, and my parents used to tell me, "Yeah, I should go read a book sometime." I never listened to my dad because I got a lot of energy and I couldn't focus on reading because my mind was like I don't really follow the linear stuff. Like I connect the dots mostly. I'm like a web thinker, and I realized that the only book I read from cover to cover, which took me a long time, was the Bible. I feel like it took me 35 years to read one book. So at the age of 36, I said, I got to change the story. This can't be my story, I keep telling myself. And I love wisdom, I love story, but, for me to get to enough story, I have to go find them in books. I'm discovering books is the best place to find a story at. So I set a challenge in 2016 to read and list 100 books a year, 1,000 books in 10 years. And it has been 7 years, 7+ years, going on 8 years. And I'm last time I updated my spreadsheet, I was about 730 books. So I've been pushing my mind, right? So I've been reading a lot of different things. So the best way to stretch your mind is to really download a lot of information. Before, when I was younger, there was like, oh, you only read the Bible, don't read other books because they're gonna corrupt your mind, they're gonna pollute you, blah blah this, and I believe that crap. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't expanding my mind, reading other stuff, history about the world and so forth and so on. I was doing a lot of reading. And once I start doing that, I start getting stories from other people, experience from other people. Like, wow, I didn't thought it was possible. As you hear things and start connecting the dots, I'm like, wow, these things are making a lot of sense now. Why certain things are the way they are. And from there, I fell in love with literature, with reading and writing, and the story of other people. And now I'm starving for it. So my appetite is really big for reading and finding out the story. So I keep doing a lot of that each day. So I'm averaging about 2 books a week because my goal is 100 books a year. So every 2 weeks I gotta finish 2 new books, right? And I'm mostly doing audiobooks now because I'm doing a lot of writing. So I'm already practicing my writing and I'm gonna do reading a lot of content. So now the reading stuff I can do it every now and then, but most stuff I read is what I create, what I write. But I'm listening to a lot of audiobooks now. So I'm downloading a lot of audiobooks and it's been very, very so inspiring. Like I've learned so much. Like I got so much information and stuff. And it's been amazing, my friend. It's been amazing. So that's one way of pushing my mind. Was that your question? What was your question again?
Yes, that was. So I noticed that you said you can't keep telling yourself that story.
Mm.
Did you? Do you think it helped you to change what you were saying to yourself?
Oh my God. 100%. We are made up of the story we are made up of. Like the story that we like the story made up the story we're made up of. Right? So you gotta think about the story that you're making up. Because you're made up of that story. So I realized that I was made up of this empowering narrative. And I was living that story and I was like, I gotta change that. So how do I change it? I gotta create a new story. And some people, we hear these affirmation things and all these other stuff that people say about, you gotta believe it before you see it, or see it before you believe it, whatever, spin it back and forth. But I realized that for me to really embody something that I create in my mind, I gotta create that image in myself. And then when I start doing that, then I start finding evidence. Because one of my favorite quotes is by Dan Sullivan. It says your eyes only see and your ears only hear what your brain is looking for. So now, when I think about what I want to see in the world, it comes back to what my brain is looking for. So now, if your brain is looking for this important part of your story, like the ugliness in the world, you're gonna find it. And if your brain is looking for a weaker version of you, you're gonna find it. You're gonna see it in everything. So now I start creating a narrative that it's a stronger version of myself, a more important version of myself doing awesome things like massive goals, massive ambition. I start creating that, and little by little, my brain starts finding those evidence. So now when I'm talking to people, I'm meeting people, I'm seeing those opportunities that my brain is looking for because it's like, Asher, look there. That's what you wanted. Like you asked that question, the answer is right there. And it started happening. And what validated that for me too is like when I was in the military, I do a lot of deployments. I've been 5 deployments, right, overseas. And when I was deployed, I was looking for danger everywhere because you was trained up to see threats and danger everywhere. So when you go there, your mind is you're on hyper alert, looking for threats and danger. And I was seeing opportunities for that to happen to me, like stuff that happened bad. So I'm looking for it everywhere. And I realized that when I came back home from my deployment, I was still looking for that. My brain was still looking for that. So even when I go out, I'm looking for threat everywhere. When I'm seeing package that looks like what they would set up as an IED, I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm like, why am I seeing these things though? Because my brain was looking for it. So my eyes only see and my ears only hear what my brain is looking for. So now I gotta give my brain something right to look for. Like I give it a good problem to solve, it's gonna find me the answer. I give it a big ass goal to accomplish, it's gonna find me a way to do it. So when I first started that book challenge, like I had no idea what I'm gonna read 100 books a year. Like I was working 12, 13 hours a day already, being in the military. And on top of that, I was trying to knock out that much time in books. I didn't know, but I set the goal. My brain got to find the answer now. So my brain was looking for it. And it was like, Asher, okay, book. You can squeeze it here. So I was seeing opportunities where I can listen to book, read book, different stuff, so forth and so on. And all those solutions start showing up. And I'm start meeting people that are doing the same thing, like, oh, this is what I did to make it faster, or so forth and so on. And even when I was listening to books, like I discovered like, oh, you can speed the book up in a certain way. Listen to it faster. I'm like, oh, really? Let me increase the speed of the book. Oh, that helps too. I can knock a lot more book out. So all of those stuff worked. And even when I speed up the books, my brain sped up to listen to the book at a faster pace. It was crazy, right? But I noticed all those things was playing out. I'm like, my brain, I can control this thing, but I got to tell it what to do, what to achieve. And after that, now my ambitions are big. My goals are massive because now I realize my brain is going to go to work for me. Either I put it to work on a small goal or a large one. It's going to go to accomplish it. It's going to find me a solution that's going to accomplish it. And from there, I'm convinced.
I agree completely. No, like I've learned a lot recently that what we say to ourselves is so freaking powerful. And whether you say it to somebody else or it's just in your head, it's going to affect what you do, how you show up, and everything like that. I'll give you an example. Growing up, I was always super overweight, and I identified myself internally as the fat kid. I never said this out loud, but for the longest time, I was the fat kid. And it affected my ability to lose weight. It affected my ability to show up that way. And I, just a couple years ago, stopped saying that to myself. And I've lost 65 pounds, and here I am now because I'm not the fat kid. You know?
My God.
And
That is so powerful.
thank you. But even another example, I never used to be into working out. I'm a big gym rat now. But even once I first joined the gym, wasn't into cardio. I wasn't a runner. And I said that all the time. Then a friend of mine wanted me to run a 5K with her, which isn't that long. But I was like, just because I lift weights doesn't mean I can just wake up one day and run a 5K. So I was like, you know what? You're a runner now, Amanda. You're going to run a mile every single day. Rain, shine, snow, sleet, we're running a mile outside every day because you're a runner. I did that for 370 days, then I ran the 5K. Because now I'm a runner.
Oh my God. Congratulations for being so powerful, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
No, it is. It is. It is so awesome when we figure out how powerful the mind is over the body, because like your body listens to your mind. Like it does. Like this is the only command system in your body. I mean, the brain does its thing, but mentally you need your mind. So when you said I wasn't a fat kid anymore, and that automatic shift because now a new identity shows up. We talk about identity, right? A
Mm-hmm.
new identity show up. The old one has to go because the brain is going to serve the new identity. So I said identity is one of the most powerful thing on the planet because once you identify certain things, the brain has no choice but to serve that thing now because the brain is a slave to that identity. So when you said, "Oh my God," like even in the military, people always say, "Asher, you don't have to worry about losing weight because you're always skinny, blah blah." And they don't understand. I'm gonna tell you something, right? It's, when we mentioned that, I was like, it's easy to lose weight. It's harder to keep it off. So I was telling people like, listen, in my mind, I would tell myself I would never be fat. Like there's a floor and there's a ceiling. I'm like, this is lowest I'm gonna go, this highest I'm gonna go. Because I told myself I don't want to be a big guy either. I don't want to gain a lot of weight because I already mapped it out. Like I already see it. Like at a certain age, the weight, the muscle, all that stuff becomes fat too. Like gravity wins always. Like the weight up top is gonna fall all the way down. It's gonna shrink, shrink, shrink. And I realize the folks that stay a certain way, if at a certain weight, you stay that way for a long time because not much gravity fight. So, but you don't need muscle and stuff like that, right? We know that at a certain age as you get older. But when you say that I was no longer a fat kid, that makes a lot of sense. That was so far powerful because now there's no battle anymore. You assume a new identity, and you live up to that identity. Now your brain is serving it. It's a servant now, and it's way more powerful. So, congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. When you mentioned the brain, it made me think of this quote that a good friend of mine said recently, but he's an endurance coach and he mentions even to his clients, your mind will quit before your body will. You
Mm-hmm.
just gotta keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Your body can handle more than your mind thinks it can.
Essential, and that's what the military taught me as well. Like your body's capable of so much, so much. So much, and I meet these young folks that join the military sometimes. And I gotta teach them, train them up, and so forth and so on. And they come in and they don't have no idea what their body is capable of. And sometimes you're right. The hardest thing to make up is your mind, right? But it's easy to make your mind up once you decide what in your mind worth making up on, right? So if I say, hey, this is the thing, it might take a while for me to convince myself, but once I convince myself, it's an easy change. Boom, one quick switch. I'm this now. Mine is made up. So, so people come in and they're like, oh, man, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm like, listen, you're right. Your mind will quit before your body. But once the body gets a habit in it, like you decide you're going to run 370 days, now your body's used to running. Like it will go the mile. If you run 25 miles, right, and your body know you do it, if mentally you might feel like I'm tired, I'm drained, but your body done 25 miles already. It know it can do it. If you keep going, but your body will make it. Your body will make it. So it's impressive when you get to that far, man. So congratulations again. For being powerful,
Thank
man.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to switch topics a little bit, and I want to talk about the mental, spiritual, physical, and social intercourse, and how that relates to personal growth and what those terms mean. Because I heard that for the first time from you, and I would love to touch on that.
All right. So mental, spiritual, physical, social. So those are the 4 pillars of my coaching program. And I'm gonna try to break them down for you a little bit. And mental intercourse. So when people think about intercourse, they always think about sex, right? Because we think about the intercourse piece. And me back and forth, I went back and forth with people like, actually, you should change the word intercourse. I'm like, I'm not gonna change it. Eventually, people are gonna understand it. But I'm gonna keep putting it out there. But it's really, how do you really have that really amazing conversation with yourself? Like mental intercourse, like the communication that you're having with other people. How do you express your physical experience of reality? Your mental experience reality. How you express that with other people? Because right now we're having a really awesome mental intercourse, right? Because I'm tapping into your mind, you're tapping into my mind, and we're sharing thoughts and ideas that really, really connects us, right? It's because intercourse is a deeper connection. It's connection, right? So how do you really connect with other people mentally, where that intercourse is amazing? How you want to make it horrible? But I like also mental intercourse, so that's what I focus on. And you got the physical intercourse is like how do you communicate that experience that you have with other people the same way but in a more physical way. And we can tap into the social piece now. that piece, matter of fact, the book that I'm working on right now is it's like around the immigrants and veterans story, means including my story, and it's a long-term project where I'm gathering people's story, right? How do they communicate that story from their life with other people? How do you share that in a community way? Because the social intercourse is all about the community piece. How do you connect those parts, and how do you connect communities and identity, so forth and so on? So that will be focus on, and then the spiritual piece, of course, is all about that divine connection that you get to connect with and share with the world. And you can connect all of those, and then boom, in the course. But here's another piece to it. So mental is like your believability. Um, the physical is like the knowability piece of it. I'm sorry, yeah. And then the you got the believability, knowability, credibility. That piece kind of play into all my platform that I'm working on. So now when I first started with mental intercourse, it's about how do I get that real credibility to with the world, and how do I write stories that I can have a conversation with the world. Because when I published my first book, it was on the mental intercourse, is to start a conversation with the world. And once I start that conversation, I hear what people are thinking, what they're feeling, and then go back and forth. I get feedback, and I start having more communication with them. So I have a more mental intercourse with them. But there's a lot to it, but we can get deeper into that later on. But that's kind of like a quick overview. Does that make sense to you? What are showing up for you? What's showing up for you that you like have questions about?
What made you come up with this terminology?
Yeah, because I really, when I was doing a lot of reading, and I was connecting a lot of people, and I realized that intercourse is something that's very powerful, and without the right kind of intercourse, then we're really not really being the being that we need to be. We're really not being. So when I was building my book, I came across this tool philosophy that I kind of focus on my kind of the binary tension between my conversation with other people is what I call PhD, philosophy in doing, and the PHB, the philosophy in being. So I'm throwing a lot of terms at you folks that are listening, but for them to think through those two lenses. So the philosophy in doing is like the part of my coaching program where it's like wisdom driven. Because I came from the military, we was a doing organization. We do a lot of things, so we are really good at doing. So most people spend their life doing a lot of things, and in the process of doing that thing, they become that thing that they're doing. And then they don't do a lot of PHB work, philosophy, like reflecting on what they're doing, affecting what they're being. So I'm like, okay, we need to go back and look at the being side of it. So how do you focus on being something before you do it? And that comes back to the narrative you talk about, like what you tell yourself, how you create that version of yourself. It's like me in your mind, you gotta say, this is me, and I want to be this guy. I want to be a man of wisdom. I gotta create that person in my mind first. I gotta be that person in my mind first, and then I go do the things that would have me become that person. So there's a quote that says, "You practice the habits of where you're going and the habits of where you're coming from." Right? Because if you practice the habits of where you're going, it will get you there. But if you practice the habits of where you're coming from, you're gonna go back in the past. You're gonna keep repeating the same person you've been before. So now, how do I focus on the person I want to create? The habits that will get me to that person. I start executing that habits, and it take me to that future person. So practice the habits of the future, so you can get there. And when it comes back to the being piece, like, oh, what do I want to be now? This person, that person. What are the habits that person practiced to become that person? I mapped it out and I start doing it. And now I love who I'm becoming, who I be. Okay, I know I said I like this now. What did that spark for you?
I agree with all of that. Just it makes me think of like showing up as the person that you want to be, and even embodying and acting as if you already are X person, whatever that is for you. Showing up, telling yourself, and showing up in society as that type of individual, embodying that identity.
That is very hard, by the way, because you know what happens? When you say, the person I want to be is this person now, and you go around the people that know you, they was like, what are you doing? That's not you. And then you doubt, and you stop practicing those things, and you end up being the person that they expect you to be. Because what happened is when people start to see you changing, they notice it, they're like, no, I don't want you to change because no, you won't fit in where I'm at. You won't fit in the identity that I put you in. So it's very difficult. So sometimes when you think about that stuff, man, it's a lot of work. Because like when I say I want to be wise, I don't give a damn what nobody says. I stop talking to certain people because I'm like, wisdom is my highest value. They're like, actually, let's go do this. I'm like, hey, is it going to make me any wiser? No, I'm not doing it. So now it makes it easy for me to say no to people because now I won't feel guilty because I know it affects my value. It's in conflict with my value, so I don't feel guilty because I know what I want to do, where I want to go. And it's important to know those things. So therefore, you can like, hey, I'm not gonna fall into your plan, buddy. Like, you got this plan to take me out tonight to go party, but no, I got a plan to build something great for my future. And because you're gonna conflict, I'm telling you no, I won't feel bad about it. But oftentimes we feel guilty and we end up doing what other people want us to do. Did that ever happen to you?
Yep. I thought of my running instance, for example, because doing it 370 days, I definitely got, I don't know if I want to say backlash, but my boyfriend at the time, you can skip today. You don't have to. Nobody will notice. It's raining. You don't have to come with me. That's fine. I'll see you in about 20 minutes. I'm going on. Even we went camping one time and I didn't have my watch to track it. Well, I'm running extra long to make sure that I hit this mile because I can't definitely determine if this is a mile. So I'm running for 35 minutes because I know it's never taken me 35 minutes to run a mile. So it's probably 2-3 miles that I ran, but I'm still doing it. But it definitely made it more difficult having someone I'm very close to in my life almost giving me the excuse or the out, and that's where the boundary had to set in a little bit more, where I was like, listen, you don't have to run with me. I'll be back. I'm going to run. My mom would say the same thing to me. Amanda, it's snowing outside. Well, I'm going to speed walk. Like, there was one time snow was up to like my knees and it was not much of a run, but I ran as much as I could of it. But it was definitely more of a challenge having people say to me, just skip it. Nobody will know. I will know. And this was years ago and I still remember this. And I still remember being like, listen. And there was even one run I did with my boyfriend at the time and I fell because it was raining and I fell and I was bleeding and I was crying and it was so painful. He's like, let's go back. I'm like, listen, I'm about to do this blood, sweat, and tears. You either keep coming with me or you don't. And he's like, what if you fall again? Well, then I'll have some more tears, but we're going to still keep going. Like, but it was my own self-love, I think I want to call it that, and self-respect had to kick in even more so when I had people close in my life saying, no, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. Because, the old Manda wasn't a runner. So this new Manda, it's like, you never used to run. Okay, well, now I run every day.
Wow. You remind me of something. It's funny. I was listening to you talk. The word that pops out was commitment. And it is a word that a lot of people don't really understand what it really means. Like, they understand what the definition of commitment is, but what it really means for them personally. And it sounds like when you was doing that run, you understand what commitment means. Like, I committed to this many days to run. And the mind and the people around you are gonna doubt you, gonna cheer for you either way, but they're there, and you gotta commit to what you say you're gonna commit to because you're conditioning your mind in that moment. The mind gotta know that doesn't matter what's gonna happen, a man is gonna do this thing. So oftentimes when it comes to the rest of the goals in our life, we say we're gonna set a goal, we're gonna do it, and the mind is gonna find a way to kind of off ramp, and you're like, nope, no exit here, buddy. We stayed on this highway, like no matter what, no off ramp for you, buddy. This is not the end game, right? And you keep going, and I see a lot of people quit on stuff, which I was a quitter in my days too. Like one of the big thing that really hits me hard was I never finished what I started. I wasn't that person that started thing, never finished it because I had that ADD problem, right? I'm always chasing that shiny objects, new thing. So I never stick to one thing long enough, and I realized that was such it's a gift and it's a curse. I didn't finish certain things, so I'm like, I gotta change that. So when I do a lot of challenges, it's for me to like really stick to something and keep doing it, like commitment wise, stay with it, no matter what. I'm staying with it. I'm gonna share with this crazy ass commitment I just did to myself. Only a few people know about it, right? I'm gonna share it with you because maybe you may. But I commit to myself. This is a crazy ass commitment. I said I would never have sex until my business make $1 million. And it spent from I had an issue because my kid right now is 17 years old, almost going on 18, and I had a problem where I almost like put myself with another child. I'm like, I don't want no more kid. So then I was like, Asher, you gotta cut this off, because the goals and the dreams that you want to accomplish, like, there are gonna be ways and people gonna get in your way and gonna disrupt your plans, so forth and so on. Like, what can you do to make sure that don't happen? I'm like, you know what? Until my business make $1 million, I will not have sex again. And it's just been one of those crazy one that scares, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna commit to it no matter what. No matter what, I'm gonna commit to it. So I'm gonna keep working on the things I want to work on, because I'm here with my family in Connecticut. I'm seeing the struggles they're having, and I see how, like, we are on this corporate plantation, this slave plantation, this elevator plantation. We are seeing people just working every day and they're not making anything move. And I realize the thing that I need to do is really, like, somebody in this family got to sacrifice a lot, do something crazy, right? Even if it costs the life. Like, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for my family to set them on a trajectory where we can kind of, like, get off this plantation, free, like, the freedom of money piece happened for us, right? Because I'm fighting for these four freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of purpose, freedom of relationship, right? And the big one that I noticed that really would solve a lot of problems is money. And, you know, there's this saying that says, if you have a problem and you can write a check for it, it's no longer a problem. So I want to focus on problems that I like. If I write a check for it, it won't go away. It requires me to personally involve a certain part of me. Like, if it's a mental problem, you can't write a check for a mental problem. You got to figure that one on your own. Right? There's no money that can change that mental problem. Like, you can talk to people, but you still got to do the work, right? So I'm realizing that any problem that you can write a check for is no longer a problem. So I can make enough money, kind of money, where I'm like, hey, if the problem show up, I can write a check for it, no longer a problem. Those, I want to get to that space. So now, how do I do that? I got to sacrifice a lot. So no, that's one of the things that I told myself, commitment, Asher. Until my business make $1 million, then I won't do that. So now I can really scale it after that piece. So how do I set that system up so I can work on that? And that's been a very hard one to really, like, to commit to. But I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. No, my brain understand, my body understand. That's it. I gave you a lot just now.
You did. I wanna backtrack just a little bit.
Okay.
And talking about commitment, it made me think of a quote that was said to me probably about a year ago, and changed my life. But keeping promises to yourself is the fastest way to build self-love and self-confidence. Whatever the promise is. If you say, it could be small things. You say you're going to make your bed every day. Not making your bed when you said you were gonna is going to ruin a little bit of self-confidence and self-love. Because if you're breaking promises to yourself, what's going to make you keep them to anybody? So I just want to throw that out there to you. But what made you decide sexual intercourse was what you wanted to refrain from until you make $1 million in your business?
Like, the biggest, one of the biggest, you ever heard of, like, the Benjamin Franklin 13 values, something like that? I forgot what it's called, but he had a list of 13 things that he kind of sent. It's like, I think 13 values he had or something. I'm going to name it. But one of them was on that list was about the sex piece. And he was talking about if you can refrain or focus on your mind and that, because that takes a lot of different energy, right? If you're distracted, and oftentimes, like, women are the biggest distraction for men, 100%. But they're also the biggest supporter for men. So if you have the right kind of woman in your life, then you can really do a lot. But then if you don't have the right kind of woman, you can really get derailed, right? And I realized that, okay, I'm meeting a lot of women, and I realized that oftentimes, you know, they're attracted to Asher, so forth and so on, but then most of them want kids. I'm like, I don't want no kid right now. Like, I have one kid. I came from a 9 family, like 5 brothers, 3 sisters, big family. Like, I don't want no more kids. Like, I really like, it's good to have kids, but I want to create the thing that we can do collectively that can set us, a lot of us free. Because I'm realizing, like, a lot of my cousins and nephews and stuff, like, you know, different spread out. I'm like, we can't organize the way we want to organize because they disconnect because of the money piece. So how do I create that kind of wealth where I can, like, okay, so I can help my entire family, and I can put a lot of work in, even it costs me my life, but I get to lift something back that can set them on a different course. And I'm just going to do everything I can to do it while I have time on this planet. So yeah, my biggest distraction in my past was sexual intercourse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you decided to refrain from until you make $1 million, or just that?
Well, that was one. Well, the incident caused me to do that one. I got somebody pregnant actually, and then I was like, oh, I didn't want the baby, but then I want the baby. I didn't want the baby. Then back and forth. Then I was like, oh my god, actually, you almost just ruined your whole plan. And I was like, okay, I need to stop this. Like, no more, no more. So now, how do I focus on the goals I want to build and the thing I want to build? Because I'm not doing it for me. Because the baby thing would be a very selfish move for me. When my goal is family oriented, like my family, not just me, because my entire family. And how do I make a difference for that? And I realized that my biggest distraction was that. Cause I get excited when I meet somebody new. I'm like, yeah, blah blah blah. But then you end up doing something like, oh my god, all right, it's gonna change my plan. I don't want to do that. So until that happens, then yeah, I meet people. I get to help them do stuff, and then if they want it, they're gonna have to wait until my business make $1 million.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, was there anything else that you, or is it just the sexual intercourse that you are refraining from?
Refraining from I'm gonna give you the story because sometimes people are right now. Like I realize that what happened in society right now. Most of us we're like so trapped in the 5 second, the 3 second, the 90 second educational piece on the social media. Like the attention span that we have was only for like those really short clips. And I'm seeing this all like, man, this is really hurting us a lot because the people that are making it in the like making a big difference are the people that are able to take the boring, right, and make it entertaining and educating. But if you can't spend time focused on the boring, then you won't make a difference. So if you're in a place of consuming entertainment only, then you will not make a difference. You just be a consumer, not really gonna create anything much, and you're gonna end up being enslaved because people are gonna drag you through the things that get you attention. So when I started my book journey, I call it TV. Like TV, I mean news. I don't watch anything on the TV. The music, only music that I curate. That means I pick him. I make my playlist. I want to play music so I don't do open source, just playing stuff in my ears. No. So I control a lot of the media that comes in my mind. And once I start doing that, I'm like, oh my god, I have so much time. Because I think I read a study that was saying the average American watch about 30 to 70 hours of TV a week. And I was like, 37 hours? That's a whole work week. I mean, that's a whole work week cycle, right? Like that's 8 hours a day, almost, that you can do something. Because 8 hours. So I'm like, if we put that much time into TV, if I can use that hours and put it into something educational, so I want to start the book journey. I'm learning like crazy right now. Like my appetite for learning is massive, so I do a lot of that. So those are things that I home it up my life. So right now, all I do is listen to books, read books, write, and find ways to educate myself. Because I realize there's so much stuff out there to learn, and then so much way to impact other people. So how do I take the board and make it entertaining, educating? I gotta learn those skills, and know that's what I'm doing with my life.
Okay. How long ago was this that you made this commitment?
Oh, it was 2016. That's when I really started it. So by the end of 2016, I kind of eliminate a lot of those things in my life, and from then, it's been just that journey of straight education. That's it. Because I believe that I think most of I would say I'm 7 years old, going on 8. Because for the first part of that life before 36, I learned, but I didn't learn much. So most of my learning started, after 2016, really. So I felt like I'm newborn. I'm just 7 years old, going on 8 years. So I'm an 8-year-old kid right now learning, and I'm excited about the world because I get to just really embrace the knowledge of the world and really digest it in a way that really makes sense to me. So I'm listening to people talk and listening to things. It makes me so really so much, like I can see things a lot now because my brain works where I'm not a person that can put things together that well. I'm a person, my brain works, I'm taking things apart. So because most people that put things together are memory based, like you can remember things put together. But I'm not memory based. Like I'm like really intuitive, like intelligence based in a certain way, right? So where I can look at certain things, I can take it apart. I'm like, oh. So when people give me their story, I can see the value in it automatically. Like when people talk to me about stuff, I'm like, oh, I can see it because I can pick it apart. So that's my skill set.
Okay. So I want to transition a little bit.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, what would you say trauma means to you? How would you define it?
So my first book, actually, the title is Turn Your Traumas into Treasure. And when I wrote that first book, I had to really look at my life because I came to the military. I had a lot of experience that people would consider trauma. Same thing growing up as a child, the kind of discipline that my parents gave me in America, they would call it abuse, right? So all those things happen. When I look at my own story of my own family, like I'm gonna give you a quick rundown real quick. So I'm gonna answer your question about trauma. But I want your audience to kind of imagine this, right? Just imagine being 34 years old. Just imagine being a mother today, modern day mother, at 34 years old. Just imagine already having 9 kids. Just imagine. How old are you, by the way?
27.
27. Ooh. So just imagine being 34 years old and already have 9 kids. And if you're a modern day father right now, just imagine being a modern day father. And you have 9 kids without a formal education. That's the story of my parents. My dad lost both his parents by the age of 10. So he didn't have an opportunity to get care for go to school. He was raised by his older sister, but she was very abusive, so he ran away from home when he was 16 and he went on the road. My mom, at 34 years old, had 9 kids already. Right? But she didn't get a lot of love from her dad, so a lot of trauma there too. So when I think about the word trauma, I just don't think about just my own trauma. I think about the trauma of me, my parents, their grandparents, so forth and so on. Because we are them. Like when my mom gave birth to me, she gave birth to herself. When my dad gave birth to me, he gave birth to himself. Same thing with your parents. When your parents gave birth to you, gave birth to themselves. So you are your parents, whether you like it or not. You're going to see, the older you get, you're going to see a lot of them playing out. And you're like, what happened? Oh, I'm just like my dad. How did that happen? Like, are you just like your mom? You put like, oh, I don't like my mom. I can't stand her. But you're gonna find out. The older you get, you're going to be just like her. A lot of things going to play. Because genetics, it's going to be there. Right? Cultural stuff is going to be there. So when I think about trauma, I consider not just my own trauma, but their trauma as well. And then I look into my own family story. When I studied the book title, Turning Traumas into Treasure, I was like, okay, the things that I'm looking at in my life that was a disadvantage, they're actually an advantage. They're actually treasure. And I start spinning that story a little bit different because now I'm like, okay, if the things that I saw in my life that I thought was a disadvantage, but when I really study them, when I really like look at the obstacles and overcome it, convert it, I was like, wow, it was like the raw material for me achieving my goal. But now it's treasure now. But at first I thought it was trauma. So everything that I went through that seems horrible and hard, it was a fuel for me to be here. It's a fuel for me to do a certain thing. So like my dad couldn't read, right? That motivated my passion for reading now. Because like, well, he didn't have the opportunity to do it. He didn't go to school. So now that fuel for me right now is like, what can I do with my own story to make that change? So now that gap that was in my life, my dad's story becomes a motivator for me now. And a lot of people, so look at the things that are missing in your life, right? The things that you think is a disadvantage. I would tell you, like, I love this quote that says, anything that piss you off, frustrates you, make you mad, irritates you, any one of those problems, those things, you were born to solve. Because the universe made sure that you wouldn't miss them, you wouldn't forget them. So sometime right now, if somebody's listening, like, I don't know my purpose in life. I'm going to tell you exactly what your purpose is. Your purpose is those things that are irritating, piss you off, you are meant to solve them. So once you solve them, life becomes meaningful because now you're like, wow, that mountain that I just dig down and made it a flat land. Now I get to share that story with somebody else because somebody's got the same mountain they got to dig down. And you say, hey, this is how I did it. Do you know how valuable that becomes for somebody else? Because they're looking at their own mountain like, I don't know what to do. You're like, hey, let me tell you what I do. It took me at least 10,000 shovels. And guess what? It's flat now. Like, wow, 10,000 shovels? Yeah. You might be able to do it faster. You get more people to help you. But, those stories and things help people figure out their own journey. So I said, solve the problem in your life. Like, actually, I ask your guests to ask themselves this question. So think about 5 things in your life that are not right. Think about 5 things in your life that are not right. Just write them down. 5 things that are not right in your life right now. Just write them down. You can do the same thing. Write on 5 things that are right. But when you focus on things that are not right, those are the things you solve. You start getting solutions for those things, your life becomes a lot easier because now there's purpose. Because those things that are not right, the universe say, hey, I attach them to you so you can solve them. Like you want to find purpose? Don't look out there in the world. Look into your own life right now, the things that are not right, and solve those. And you find purpose, meaning in your life. Did I answer your trauma question?
Wow. I think so. I think so.
Okay, let me actually return. When you think about trauma, what shows up for you when you think about trauma?
When I think about trauma,
Mm-hmm.
I don't love the word, but I think words are so powerful, and what the words you say are so powerful. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't love that word because I think there's a lot of negative connotation to it. But I
Mm-hmm.
also think a lot of people, not my generation and not your generation, but an older generation, don't understand it and don't think that it's a thing.
I would agree with them too.
You don't think it's a thing?
So,
So I think of trauma, I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, this big, bad, negative thing. It's just something that impacted you, an event or an experience in your life that impacted you.
okay. No, I get it. And so people, there's trauma, and there's an experience that we have that we didn't like, we didn't enjoy, we didn't find like it made sense. But I'm gonna tell you this thing, because the thing that you consider trauma now is just a difficult situation for you to handle. But then once you handle that difficult situation, then what happens? It's no longer difficult, it becomes easy. So everything people experience in life that's difficult, that they don't understand, it's gonna make them feel like, let me break it on this way. Let me get it simple. What is trauma? Trauma means that you have an experience that you didn't give permission to. Like for example, somebody rapes you, right? Rape is just sex, but without your permission. So when somebody said, "Hey, somebody raped me and I was traumatized by it," they didn't give permission. So because you didn't give permission, then it violates your rights. It violates your belief system. It violates your value, all these things, right? And those things get violated. Now you feel like somebody take your power. But if you give somebody the permission to take your power, it's not a power being taken, right? Because you gave it up. You're like, "Hey, do this to me." So so it came back to all those things. So now you battling that experience that you didn't give permission to happen to you. And now you're like, why does this happen? Now what I realized in my life a lot of different ways, right? For example, in the military. In the military, we put people through a lot of really tough training, right? Test them, push them to their limits. And if they didn't volunteer for that thing, they will feel traumatized at the end of it. But because it says, I want to push myself to this thing, I want to experience this thing. Then you're like, oh, no, it was so hard, it was so tough. Man, if I didn't volunteer for it, I would feel like I've been traumatized, right? Same thing. So when I go back to my own life, right? Before I came to planet Earth, this is my thinking. I volunteered to come here. I mean, I volunteered to have all these experiences that happen to me. So now, initially, I gave permission. No, consciously, I'm not aware of all of these things. And because I'm not aware of all these things, I think, oh, this thing is without my permission. So I'm being traumatized. But then fast forward 20, 30 years from now, then you get in a situation and the universe says, you remember that thing that you was traumatized about? You remember all the tools and skills that you pick up? Now they're available for this situation right now because you can meet an obstacle that required an experience that you was like, I didn't want it when it happens to me. But now it gave me some tools that get me to get through this door. Like I couldn't pick this lock if I didn't got the key when I back then in that experience. So then I always look at life the same way. Like something happened to you right now that you like, oh, it's horrible. I don't like it. It traumatizes me. But I get to age 40, and I'm at this door, and the only way to get through it is the key that I got when I was traumatized. Then what do you think about your trauma? It's no treasure. So then I look at my life and I'm like, okay, whatever happens to me, I didn't volunteer for it. I felt like it was traumatized. I didn't understand it. But now I get to a certain point, I realize that in the end, all these things connects. These dots connect over a period of time. You just done a long enough timeline, it makes sense. So now I'm like, everything is treasure. I just got to figure out, I ask my brain now, hey, how do you see the treasure going forward? And now my brain start looking for it. Like I said, your eyes want to see and your ears want to hear what your brain is looking for. Now my brain is looking for it. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
I agree. And I think that's beautiful, though, the way you were able to transform that mindset of it. You know, I am someone, have not always been like this, but I am someone who now is able to look at the positives of even the negative things that happen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I did an end of the year episode about my highlights and lowlights of 2023. And I emphasized how a lot of the lowlights can also be looked at as highlights if you look at it from a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
There is maybe not every situation in life, like deaths, certain things. Maybe there's not a positive, but a lot of things in life, you are able to find a positive situation from it.
Mm.
I strongly believe that. One of my worst experiences in my life with my father brought out a really positive situation that now I have a relationship with my brother, which, yeah.
Mm. You mentioned something here that which I think when we first met, we talked about it. I can't remember if it was you or I think we talked about like the binary tension between the positive and negative, the spark of electricity. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Electricity.
So yeah. So the electricity spark. So to kind of catch up your audience here really fast. So we was talking about the importance of the negative and the positive, and because without the positive negative charge, we wouldn't have electricity, right? And we are electric beings. So now I really look at the things that happen in my life, like that binary tension between both the positive and negative are very important because they create the spark we need. Like certain things, certain motivation you have, you wouldn't have it without negative and positive spark. You would sit there in neutral and nothing happened in neutral, by the way. Nothing. Right? You need the positive negative charge. So my life, your life, all of our life needs a spark. And you gotta appreciate the lows and the highs. You was talking about the highlight and low light. Hey, when you're on the top of a mountain, your only goal is to get to the bottom, right? Before you can get to the next mountain.
Yeah.
So then your focus is like, I gotta get to the low life, the low area. It's important. It's part of that journey. It's very valuable because without the low, there's no high, and you wouldn't appreciate the high without the low. So it's like all of these things, they are very valuable. And once you start like recognizing it, sometime in the midst of the stress and the struggle, you don't see them. But in a moment of reflection, like my PhD side of the house, philosophy and being, when you're reflecting on stuff, guess what happened? You start noticing it. So then I realized that there's going to be a point when I get to reflect on the lows and the highs, and I know they're valuable. And oftentimes when you're in that moment, you need somebody to remind you, like, hey, don't beat up on yourself so much. It's valuable now. You just might not see it because it's very tough right now. But your mind need to push through that toughness. So keep going, right? Keep going. And we need reminding more than we need educating. That's what Earl Nightingale said. And I appreciate folks coming around to remind me, Asher, don't give up, man. You know what's going to happen when you get to the end. So keep going. So anyway, I love your mind, by the way. Oh my God.
Thank you. I love that analogy though of the mountain. You're at the top and the only thing you're thinking about is getting to the low. I love that. I'm big on analogies. Analogies and quotes are my thing.
Oh my God.
I love that.
I speak through analogies. I call them. I got a 4-letter for them. It's called spam. You can put it on your book. Spam. It stands for similes, parables, analogies, and metaphors. And those are important because what the spam do for you? It helps you take a big body of information and shrink it down into a small capsule so you can digest it and I can digest it. Sometimes people have these amazing ideas and stuff, and it's very hard to explain it to you. But I put it to an analogy, and automatically you're like, oh, makes sense, right? So I love those things. So I'm spamming everything. Where every time I talk, I try to teach. I teach through spams because you can't teach complexity. You can only teach simplicity. Because people don't learn. People learn complexity on their own because their mind is always complex. But you can't teach. You can't teach but through simplicity. So I had to learn that one really hard because with my ADD brain and my dyslexic brain, like it's very complicated up there. And I see solution, but then I'm trying to translate it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not. Oh, actually, you gotta simplify it. Oh, simplify it. And it's hard to try to multiply ideas that you haven't simplified. It's very hard, right? And sometimes you got people that they're good at multipliers. They can share ideas all over the place, like the multiplier. But I realize you gotta simplify it first. So teach simplicity. And that's what analogies help me do. It really makes things simple through analogies. So I'm spamming. So I'm spamming you right now.
I love that. I love that. This has been such a good conversation. Thank you so much for speaking to me.
Yeah.
So, I typically end my podcast with 2 segments. Have you
Mm.
heard of the man named Jay Shetty?
Oh yeah, Jay Shetty was on my reading list. I checked him out for a while. I studied his work for a little bit, but I'm past Jay Shetty now.
Okay,
But yeah,
okay.
he's one of my heroes back in the day. Still my hero though, but yeah.
Back in the day, not no more? Okay.
Yeah. So this is what I do, right? When I find people that have good content, that good stuff, if they got books, I read all their books. If they got anything, I look them up. I study their stuff real fast. Like when I was studying Sadhguru, I listened to so much videos on that guy, YouTube videos. I'm like, oh, I get how he's thinking now. Then once he's done, move on to the next guy because I'm already upgrading. Studying people, find out what they've summarized from their life. Like, oh, all their life wisdom, they're gonna keep saying it. Once I get it, I keep moving. So yeah, but Jay
I get
Shetty's
that.
pretty good.
I get that. Well,
Mhm.
he's got a podcast. I don't know if you've heard it, called
On
On
purpose.
Purpose. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I
Finishing my sentences. Okay. Well, he ends it with 2 segments, and I love them. So
do.
I've started taking them. So I'm going to ask you them. First
Mhm.
segment is the many sides to us. And these questions have to be answered in 1 word. You ready?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Number 1. What is 1 word someone who is meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Wise.
I did say that, so I agree. Number 2. What is 1 word that someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you?
Very outgoing. Oh, that's more than 1 word, right?
Just then outgoing is fine.
Outgoing.
You just.
Mhm.
Number 3. What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Ambitious.
Okay. Why are you laughing at that? Do you not agree with that?
No, that's it because ambitious. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 4. What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you? Not like a random person, but someone who didn't agree with you.
Confrontational.
Okay, number 5. What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Commitment.
I like that. Okay. Second section is the final 5. These can be answered in up to a sentence. Number 1. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
The problem is not the problem, but you're thinking about the problem is the problem. That's a quote that I stick to because it represents a lot. The problem is not the problem. The problem is you're thinking about the problem. You're thinking that makes the problem, right? That was by Dan Sullivan. So once I heard that quote, I was like, oh my God. The problem is not the problem. It's my thinking about the problem that makes the problem. So then I got to figure out how to think about my thinking and change the way I think. So the problem is no longer a problem. So for example, I'll meet you and you're like, oh, actually, that's easy. But to me, it's very complicated. Then I say, hey, how do you think about that thing to make it so easy for you? Like, oh, Asher, I do it this way. I sit on the left versus sitting on the right. So I see it differently. Oh, no, I try it. No, I'm like, oh, it was my thinking that made it a problem, not really the thing. The thing wasn't really a problem. So that would be the answer to that question.
Okay. Number 2. What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
Do it by yourself.
Okay. What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Drinking.
Number 4. If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be, as if someone were reading it, what would you want it to say?
He mattered.
Last one. If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I'm going to want to know why too. That's my added in there.
Think for themselves.
Why?
Well, we gotta start thinking for ourselves before they make it illegal. but but it's what I call society, a system of normalized averages. You can roll up society into that one. So we often average the things that we normalize averages, and people think that, oh, it's average this, average that. But then you realize that we gotta think for ourselves, because if you don't feel the power to think for yourself, then oftentimes you're just gonna regurgitate other people's thinking. So what about your own thinking? And there is a lot more empowerment in your own thinking. And sometimes people have ideas, they have thoughts that they are selected, that this is what I want to pursue, and other people talk them out of it. So I'm like, no, you gotta focus on thinking for yourself. Like, this is like, use your brain, because you feel a lot more empowered when you start using it. So that would be it. Law is everybody got to be able to think for themselves and feel empowered doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's great. So, anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Absolutely. I would tell them they should appreciate you even more for doing this, because it takes a lot of time to sit down, have a conversation with somebody, then record it, then edit it, then share it. Because we all need a lot of entertainment. Everybody's out there listening, right? Because one part of your senses that don't get tired of these, your ear. Like, your eyes might get tired, but hearing, two main learning platform like Learning Portal is hearing. And you sitting here putting this stuff together takes a lot of work. I understand it. So I appreciate you for doing this and for sharing people's wisdom with the world and people ideas with the world. So thank you for bringing me on here, and I really, really, really like your energy.
Thank you. I like your
And last
energy.
thing, they can reach me at www.lifechangingwisdom.com. That's my coaching platform.
I will link it. I will link it in the show notes so they can click directly.
Okay, awesome, perfect.
And I'll link where you can find Asher and everything like that. And I do have one last question for you.
Of course.
Do you have, I'm sure you do, any resources or anything that you use on a regular basis that helps you be the wise, successful man that you are, that you'd recommend to other people?
Oh, audiobooks.
Okay.
Yeah, I would encourage, if people aren't doing it. Like, I know people watch a lot of YouTube and Facebook and Instagram Reels, and those things are great. But there's a difference when you like start a book and like, no matter what, I'm gonna finish it. Or so here's the thing. So a lot of that's why this is the reason I like books, because people spend a lot of time sitting down, consolidate all the ideas in one little book, like the greatest thing that they can think of. Like, sometimes the whole entire story, everything that they learned, that hey, put in a book. So I encourage people to read it and listen to it. Either read it or listen to it. So that's all we encourage people to do. Get in the reading game, man. There's so much stuff out there that people are not learning. And if I didn't start that journey, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I feel very, very powerful in myself, because I'm equipped with information that's worth sharing.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to speak to me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, you do, Amanda. You got an awesome voice. Keep talking.
Thank you. Hey guys, Manders here. I just wanted to take some time to summarize up a few key takeaways of that really powerful conversation with Asher. And also wanted to encourage any of y'all, if you listen to this episode, you have any takeaways, any questions, comments, things that came up as you were listening to this discussion, shoot me a message. Shoot me a message on Instagram, shoot me an email. I would love to engage in some mental intercourse with y'all and really discuss this. So, speaking of mental intercourse, those were one of the 4 pillars of Asher's coaching: mental, spiritual, physical, and social intercourse. Mental intercourse is communication, conversation with people, and tapping into their mind, because all intercourse really is connecting with somebody else. He also talks about how Mental is the believability and the credibility. Then he also talks about the physical intercourse, and that is how you share your physical experience with other people in a physical way. That's your knowability. Then he discusses social intercourse. How do you connect with communities and identities in the social world? Then he talks about spiritual intercourse, which is divine connection. Just a few terms for you guys to think about. Also, if you haven't already grabbed a notebook or a journal, I encourage you to do so, and let's start taking some notes. Then he refers to two terms, the PhD and the PhB. The PhD being the philosophy of doing, the PhB, the philosophy of being. We spend a lot of time doing. Then by doing, you become that thing. So you really want to reflect on the doing. What are you doing? Something to think about. Asher and I also emphasized the importance of creating that vision in your mind first. You need to do the things that help you become the person you want to be. Then Asher discusses how anything that pisses you off or frustrates you or irritates you, those things are how you are meant to serve. That's your purpose. The universe did not put those irritations in you and give you those for no reason. It is for you to help solve those. And once you solve those, your life becomes more meaningful because now you can help someone else or even a multitude of people going through that or a similar situation. People going through similar situations to you, they're looking at this big mountain, not knowing where to start or how to climb it. And now you can look at them and you can help them get over and climb the mountain. Then Asher talks about how you need to practice the habits. He even referenced a quote. You practice the habits of where you're going and the habits of where you're coming from. But you need to focus and emphasize your practice on the habits of the future. What are the habits of that person? The person you want to be, whoever that is. Maybe that's someone who goes to the gym. Maybe that's someone who has $1 million business. What are the habits of that person? Even if you are not that person today, what habits does that person have in their everyday life? What do they do weekly? What do they do every day? How do they start their morning? Something to think about. Then Asher poses two questions to think about and reflect on. Now, if you haven't started writing, you should have already started, but now's the time to start writing. Here's his two questions. First one, what are the 5 things that are not right about your life? And then, what are the 5 things that are right about your life? Reflect on these, journal on these, meditate on these, sit in stillness with yourself on these. Now, the 5 things that are not right about your life, those are the things you focus on. These are the things and the problems that you should solve. There's purpose in those 5 things that are wrong with your life. Asher suggests not looking out into the world and looking within to yourself to solve those problems. You will find and create your purpose by uncovering what the 5 main problems in your life are and solving them. That will help create meaning in your life. So you should start creating solutions for those 5 things that aren't right. You might not have solutions for all of them today, but you can slowly start creating solutions for each of those things. Asher and I talked a lot about trauma, and Asher emphasized how trauma is a difficult situation for you to handle. But once you handle it, it's no longer difficult. Then it becomes easy. And trauma to Asher is defined as an experience you didn't give permission to, because there was not permission granted by you. It violates your rights. Asher also emphasized how fast forward years, he said 20 to 30 years, maybe even less, the universe says, remember that thing that you were traumatized about? All the tools, skills, wisdom, knowledge are now valuable for this situation. Obstacles that required the experience that you didn't want to happen. It helped you overcome some hurdle later in life. Now you're equipped to handle something else years later. He gave a lot of great analogies, but you couldn't pick this lock if you didn't get the key back then. So now Asher is able to live his life not seeing the trauma in things and seeing everything as treasure, because everything in your life truly is treasure. Asher's come to uncover and realize that the dots do connect over time, and how you see it is really treasure. So now he is able to focus his brain on looking for the treasure in every situation in his life. Then Asher referenced an amazing quote. Your eyes only see and your ears only hear what your brain is looking for. I'm going to say this once more. Your eyes only see and your ears only hear what your brain is looking for. Reflect on that one, guys. Another great quote Asher referenced, I believe this was by Dan Sullivan. The problem is not the problem. Your thinking about the problem is the problem. So, as I take that, if you change your thoughts about the situation will change. We emphasized and Asher discussed the thought universe. And you can't choose the thoughts that come into your head, but you can choose what you focus on, whether you are going to let that thought rummage or if you are going to let it go. We do this all the time. We choose. The thought comes into your head and you choose what you do with that thought after having it. So I encourage y'all, take some time, reflect on all of this. But what problem you have in your life right now is likely not the actual problem. The way your mindset is thinking about it is the real problem. Something to reflect on today, guys. You found this powerful? I found it super powerful, took a lot of notes. I'd love to connect with y'all. Shoot me or Asher a message. His info's in the show notes, as is mine. He is also such a wise, but a very, very sweet and friendly, welcoming man. So if you connected with anything he had to share, please don't hesitate to reach out to him or me. Thanks, guys. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you, and you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.